It's estimated that 25 to 50% of houses have a fairly serious mold problem in them. When I learned about mold and started investigating, I found it in my house in a very serious way. I found it in my parents' house. I found it in my brother's house. It is a problem that we have here in America, and nobody knows what to look for, and nobody knows that it is the #1 cause of an unhealthy home. In this video, I'm going to go over 5 building designs, or lack thereof, that will almost guarantee that you're going to have a mold problem at some point in time. #1 is stupid modern building designs. All right, the modern house is so cool according to a lot of people. I personally am not into modern design at all, but what do these almost always have? They have these really flat roofs on them, these designs with no eaves, no overhangs, and starting off with that flat roof. What could possibly go wrong with a flat roof? It's pretty obvious. When the roof is flat, the water wants to stay there. So a lot of times they're going to have a real low pitch, but the slower your roof sheds water, the more likely it is to leak. This is super obvious, so let's move on to the next part of it. No overhangs. The no overhang look has become quite popular. People don't want their eaves coming out from the house 2 or 3 feet like some houses have. If you've spent a ton of money on architecture and engineering and you've got a full zip system and it's all covered in the proper flashing and the proper tapes and all that jazz, you're probably going to be okay. It's still a design that's going to lead towards more water problems down the line. What happens is when the rain comes down, let's say it overspills your gutters and comes out, that's going straight down the edge of your house. That's not going to happen that much for most people depending on where you live. But what will happen to everybody pretty much is when that rain comes in, it's coming in at a slight angle. So if you've got a nice 2-3 foot overhang, which 3 feet is big, most places don't have that, that rain moving at an angle, it's going to get caught by your overhang and it's going to go way further down your wall before it starts hitting your wall. And if you can get it to where most of that rain's not hitting the wall until down towards the base, below the windows, at the bottom of the door frames, those sort of things, you're going to have a whole lot less moisture that's getting in and getting to the outside of your house. This lack of overhangs is going to cause a lot of rot and mold problems, specifically around windows, around doors, and overall, it's just a design that is not going to stand the test of time. #2, the crawl space. Now, depending on where you're at in the US, your crawl space may or may not be an option. In the Midwest, we have the option of essentially basements or crawl spaces. We don't do a whole lot of slab construction here. And the crawl space is just a problem waiting to happen. The earth contains moisture. There's a lot of moisture in the ground. And most of the crawl spaces I see are just letting that moisture come right up through the soil, onto the joists, onto the subfloor, and they're causing rot, they're causing mold. And it may be slow, it may not be a whole lot, but very rarely do I come across a crawl space. It's like, oh wow, that's done nicely. Now, if you want to spend 20, 30 grand on your crawl space, you can get waterproofing companies that come in and they'll put these amazing plastic liners, they'll cover everything, they'll put dehumidifiers down there, and you can have a crawl space that's quite healthy. But I'm going to tell you, I only see this in people who are getting a house and spending a ton of money on it to fix it. If you're building new, I would never, ever, ever build over a crawl space. You're just asking for problems. You're asking for moisture to come up. Now, there are crawl spaces that have, a full slab down there. Now, why they don't do a full basement, I don't know. Maybe it's water table or something like that. But if I did have to build over a crawl space, I would do full concrete down there. I would do a good vapor barrier underneath. I would have great drainage around the outside of my house. I would have it flowing away or being pumped away, so that I'm never having moisture coming up through the bottom of my house. And if I bought a house that had an old crawl space, I would have a really nice plastic liner put in there with full moisture control and everything, so that I'm not getting that humidity constantly coming up from the earth and making everything moldy and rotten. You also have to think about radon coming up through the crawl space. If you have a concrete slab, you can do mitigation that essentially does negative pressure on one part of the slab, and it will suck any radon coming up through the soil out through that hole, and it can be pumped out away from your house. If you have just an open crawl space with dirt down there, or a basement without a finished floor, that radon's coming straight up through the earth, straight up into your house. So in my opinion, that crawl space is always going to lead to problems with moisture underneath your house. And where there is moisture, there will be mold. A lot of people haven't realized that mold can really hurt them and make them feel unwell, but people are starting to figure that out. So if you're trying to prevent mold in your house, this is the video for you. #3 on that list is excessive roof penetrations. When you look at some houses, you see vent pipe here, attic vent here, and just all of these holes in the roof. And guess what? When you poke a hole in the roof, even if you seal up well around it, you're much more likely to have a leak there. And where you have a leak, you will have mold. If you've got a good design on how your plumbing system vents and your attic vents, you can really reduce the number of holes getting poked through your roof. This is the sort of thing most builders don't know about, most homeowners don't know about it. So what happens is the trades themselves decide where the vents go, and that's usually going to be the most convenient place. Your main vents through the roof are for your attic, because most people have a vented attic, and for your plumbing fixtures. When you flush the toilet or you put water down the drain, it's like when you dump a bottle out or a gas can and it gulps. It needs air to be allowed in behind it in order for it to go down properly. That's what those pipes in your roof are doing. But did you know that you can have just one pipe coming out of your roof for your house instead of a pipe here, and a pipe there? That's right. If your system is thought through carefully, you can have all of your plumbing run together to one stack and get vented all through the same pipe. You can also use these in-wall vents called Studer valves that allow for air to go in, but no sewer gas to come back up. So let's say you've got all of your plumbing fixtures in one part of the house for all your bathrooms and everything, but then your kitchen sink is way across the house, and it's going to be really hard to run a vent pipe that connects in with that same vent stack. Well, you can put a Studer valve in the wall, and you can avoid having to put a vent on that particular part of your plumbing system. The next big culprit for holes in your roof is the fans in your bathroom. You know, when you flip that little fan on and it sucks out the poopy fumes and the moisture from your shower, it's got to go somewhere. But it actually doesn't need to go through the roof. In many instances, you can put this thing out through the eaves on your home. Now, you can't pipe it out right next to a window for very obvious reasons. But with proper planning, if you can get this thing far enough away from a window that opens, either up on a gable or on an eave away from the windows, you can avoid sending that hole through your roof. And the last main culprit for holes in the roof are attic vents. Your attic is supposed to be the same temperature as outside unless you have a conditioned attic, which almost nobody does. That's kind of a new development. So it needs vents to the outside to allow that outdoor air to flow through there and equalize it with the outdoor temperature. On some of the old houses, you see those steel round cylinder fan-shaped ones that turn with the wind. I always thought those were cool. You don't see those much anymore. What's a lot more common are just the box vents that go on top. But the most effective method for preventing a bunch of holes in your roof is to do one ridge vent across the top. This is essentially a cap that goes on the ridge that you generally put shingles over if you've got a shingle roof, and it's got little vents on the downward sides of it. It allows the air to come in and then flow down and go out on the eaves or wherever your other vents are. All these things take planning. They take saying, hey, we don't want the plumber deciding where my vent goes. It takes a lot of planning and intentionality to make sure you're reducing all these holes in your roof. But if you do get a leak and it starts coming through, most of us have some pretty gross attics. They're full of old paper cellulose and untold amounts of dust. And so we don't ever go up there, and the leak's got to be pretty bad for us to even know it's there. If it's fairly small, it's not enough to start coming through and hitting the drywall. Most of us are not going to know about it. And so that mold's going to start growing on all that paper cellulose or whatever other type of insulation you've got up there, and it's going to start slowly poisoning the air in your home. Number 4 on the list is waterproof flooring. LVP, luxury vinyl plank, is also marketed as waterproof. It's been very popular over the last few years. And in my own home, LVP was causing mold to be at least significantly worse than it needed to be. Whenever you hear waterproof, I want you to also think water trapping. If it will keep water out, it will also keep water in. And when you have a floor, your moisture problem usually is coming from underneath. It's not coming from over top. And even if it is coming from over top, it's still going to find a way to penetrate through an LVP floor. While each plank may be waterproof, they have gaps between all of them. And so that water and moisture is going to find its way underneath your flooring. One of the biggest culprits for mold under LVP is actually installing over concrete slabs. I've seen a lot of people talk about this one. You see, concrete wicks moisture. So if you got moisture around the house, in the soil, which you often do, it slowly comes up through the concrete, and that it's trapped underneath the LVP because it's water trapping as well as waterproof. So you start to grow mold on the bottom of your LVP. If you're over a basement or crawl space, a lot of times those are damp areas of the house with poor controlled humidity. It comes up, it comes through the subfloor, it gets trapped there, and you start to develop mold between your wood subfloor, or even worse, if you've got like an old layer of hardwood with a layer of moisture barrier and then a subfloor, you're really going to start to trap moisture in that layer there. That's what I had in my house. When I ripped up the LVP the flippers put in, the house just filled with this horrid moldy smell. And LVP is not great for a bunch of other reasons too. Moving on to number 5, spray foam. Spray foam is another LVP-like product in that it is water trapping. You see, most spray foam used is closed cell, which means no air, no moisture, nothing can go through it. It's like spraying a layer of plastic up on the wall. It's a type of polyurethane. Polyurethane is plastic. And so while it insulates super well, let's say you spray your wall with it in between all the studs, and then you've got one of these nifty designs in your house with no overhangs, all right? You had a nice strong thunderstorm, that rain's coming in at a hard angle, and it's just blasting the side of your house. And you know what? It starts penetrating your siding, it's going down, it's getting around your window, and what do you know? The next thing, you've got water leakage around your window or around your door, and it can't get out fast enough and it starts to rot. But you don't know that because on the inside, you have this moisture barrier of closed cell spray foam. And so it has to get really, really bad for the symptoms to start showing. And because it can't dry to the inside because of this moisture blocker, it has to all dry to the outside. And on the outside, most new homes have vinyl siding, which is not good for drying. It's just like LVP flooring. It's literally made from some of the same materials. So it's pretty good at keeping water out, but once the water does get behind it, which it inevitably does to some degree, there's nowhere for this water to dry to. It can't dry in to the spray foam and it can't dry out to the vinyl siding, so it rots. You can avoid this by using a vapor open insulation in the wall, as well as having a rain screen behind your siding, which is essentially an air gap that allows air to flow behind your siding and keep that moisture from being trapped in there. A couple honorable mentions: parapet walls. On parapet walls, walls on the edges of roofs that are for design and to keep people from falling off, one of the biggest causes of mold and roof leaks, especially in commercial buildings. And also unvented bathrooms. What do you know, guys? When you shower, when you use the bathroom and moisture is constantly released and it has nowhere to go, it will cause mold if it can't be taken out by a fan. Air quality is the #1 key to a healthy home. Thanks for watching this video, and if you've got questions, leave them down in the comments for me. Please subscribe.